Nish Sonwalkar, adaptive mobile learning guru, founder and CEO of Sonwalkar Consulting Group, former principal educational architect and director of the Hypermedia Teaching Faculty Facility at MIT, expert in the use of computers in education to customize learning for students, mobile learning, adaptive learning, brain-based synaptic learning, it says here. I'd like to know what that means and what other kind of learning there is. Anyway, he says there is freedom from the slavery of learning. He is editor-in-chief of the quarterly journal MOOCs Forum. I'm sure it's behind on the back of your toilet at home. Massive online open courses. Is pedagogical, you know that. Yeah, that theory is that one size does not fit all in the learning process. Fantastic, great to have you. Nish Sonwalkar, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Please welcome Nish Sonwalkar.
Thank you. Hello, can you hear me in the back? Great. Thank you very much, Idea Boston's, for inviting me for this wonderful gathering. I'm learning a lot here. And what a privilege to be introduced and interviewed by Tom. Let's do a poll. How many of you listen to On Point going back home? What do you think? How is Tom's performance in that? Great. Thank you, Tom, for your service. Absolutely. So what I'm going to talk today is changing the interface of education with brain-wave adaptive mobile MOOCs. I thought that this is Ideas Boston. Let's come up with and talk about some new ideas rather than what has been said. And so what I will try to do is talk about MOOCs first. How many of you know MOOCs? Okay, very good. So as you know, the MOOC phenomena has happened in the last few years. And people say that it happened in the last 2 years, but I don't believe that, primarily because online education has been around for a long time. But what happens in every technology, there is a tipping point. And I think the MOOC was a tipping point where the online education, which was originally thought about as a second-class citizen to the university system, when the research one university went into the MOOC, suddenly it became a very hip thing and very, very attractive thing for everyone to talk about. So if you look at Chronicles of Higher Education, lots of different articles coming up, but you all know about Gartner's hype cycle. So the MOOC has gone through the hype cycle, and now it's kind of getting into the place where we talk about disappointment cycle. So there are a lot of articles now in the Chronicles of Education saying that how faculty is not happy about it, right? But now what you also see in the Gartner cycle is that then it goes up to maturization process. So what I want to talk about here is that MOOC, massive open online course, is an opportunity which can really help educational process. And my specific passion there is science, engineering, technology, and mathematics education. I came to this country in 1985-86 as a graduate student at MIT. The reason I came to this country all the way from India, because I thought this is the pantheons of the science and technology. This is where I need to be the best researcher in the world. We are losing that leadership now. And if you look at your own next generation, they are not going into science and technology. And I believe if we do a good job with the MOOCs, we can possibly bring back the educational and science and technology leadership back to the United States of America. So let's begin with that introduction. What are different types of MOOCs? So you all know X MOOCs. So you may have MITX, Harvard X, and Berkeley X. A lot of these are the ones where you essentially providing MOOCs, where the X MOOCs are providing you video and you're providing you self-paced learning. You can do it on yourself. If you look at C MOOCs, are more collaborative MOOCs. So there are a lot of linking, a lot of connecting, and that's how you will do. The another one that we have coined now, the term is called AMOL, which I'm focusing on is adaptive MOOCs. How can we make MOOCs, which is a very, I would say, lonely experience of learning with 150,000 students, but you are trying to connect with others, and there's no faculty there to answer your questions. You are learning on your own, most of the time with the video lectures, which is kind of going backwards in online education. But there is certain good thing about listening to the best professors from the top universities in the world. and learning from them some of the subject matter you never thought that you wanted to learn, like quantum mechanics. And that's where what we call is a curiosity factor, but it weans out very quickly. So let's talk about that. And I'm going to introduce a new term, which is called brainwave adaptive mobile MOOCs, and I'll come to that as the idea that I'm focusing on. So the focus here in the MOOCs is innovation in open online education. The promise here is democratization of education across the world. There are lots of stories that you hear from those who proponent of MOOC that there were students who were discovered as the gems of learners in remote parts of the world, and now they are able to come to MIT. So we are looking at the places like Colombia, India, China, and we are focusing on the great student that we can discover. So it's a talent discovery model as well, which is very important for us to get those talents in the United States. So if you look at this promise, if you look at can be fulfilled, but before I get to that, let's look at some of the history, and this is where I very quickly go through this, is that it did not start in 2011, as we now say, the MOOC movement. The first MOOC was done in 2001 as open courseware, where we put Walter Lewin's video online and the physics course online. But if you look at after 10 years or so, the tipping point was 2011, the course from one of the Stanford professors, Sebastian Throne, and then MITX came in and edX came in, a whole bunch of things happened. So there is another history for the UMASS. There was the first adaptive MOOC was developed this year, which I helped develop with University of Massachusetts. So we are also putting a point in history. The first adaptive MOOC, March 2013, Molecular Dynamics MOOC, University of Massachusetts, Boston. Thank you. So these are the players, Sebastian Throne, Andrew Nuck, and Daphne Kohler are again two professors from Stanford who started Coursera. Sebastian Throne started Udacity. And of course, after that, EDX with the new president, Raphael Reif, who initially started this project between MIT and Harvard. Then they put together $30 million each, $60 million initial funding, came out EDX, edX Foundation, and now it is growing leaps and bounds. And if you look at here, now these are the universities which are part of these, this consortium only. It also includes universities from India and China and Korea. So it is becoming worldwide phenomena. So with that, if you look at some of the prototype MITX courses, which was the first one, electronics and circuits, done by Anant Agrawal, who is the president of EDX and taught the first course himself. If you look at that, this statistics is often touted. So I'm just going to put that as something that we all know. 155,000 students enrolled. Initially, when they started, they thought there will be 250, 300 students. Suddenly, the word came out, and then there were 400 students, then 5,000 students, and it went up to 155,000 students. I think 1 0 is missing there. But if you look at within the first, when the course went to 12 weeks, within the 3 weeks' time, it came down to 22,000 students, which is 14.2%. Then if you look at the first midterm, which was offered online, was taken by 9,000, and completed student is 7,000, which is a lot more than the classroom. However, if you look at the A grade, which you consider as the competency that you got with 340. So often it is touted is that the completion rate for the MOOCs is very low. And I think there are also other sustainability issues which are coming up. And those sustainability issues, number one is low completion rate, course is one size fits all, dependence on video lectures, which is often very boring experience, need more instructional design, quality of content is always not good, not a personalized experience, auto-graded assessments, sustainability in terms of looking for the business models, value of the certification, who is certifying that, now the plagiarism, who is doing the course, do you really know who is at the other end of the computer, authentication of the student, etc. So barring all these issues which are coming up, my thinking is that these are tactical issues, these are operational issues, they can be worked out. The bigger problem here is the pedagogy of online education in the context of the MOOC. And I think that's where if one size fits all, if you do, chances are you will have very large dropout. Even in your online courses, you see that. one size fits all does not work. That's why you have blending. You have faculty always connecting with the students online. But in this case, my thinking here is to go from one size fits all to adaptive individualization, or what I call personalized learning trajectories, and those are the adaptive system. And that's where I started doing research way back at MIT and looked into various models. I almost looked at 300 educational models. There's a lot of literature out there on the learning theory. So I tried to say, as an engineer and scientist, why don't we come up with a framework that we can now utilize in order to enhance the brain-based learning. So I'm going to become the armchair neurologist here and give you a quick lecture or quick background in the neural learning. If you look at here, the neurons, single neurons, and my background is molecular dynamics, so I can claim certain expertise in the single cell models and how they all connect together. So if you look at here, the single cell neuron is very special cell in your brain. It is the only cell which connects with the other cells through the axons and the synapses. And that's how it creates the network. So if you start with the single neuron, which has a lot of tentacles coming out, then it connects through the synapses to the other cells. And then there has to be an electrical transmission between these cells. And these are called the neuron cells. But there's a lot of new study coming out. So in order for you to do a certain task, educational task, you have to reach certain action potential. You have to reach to certain threshold that all these neurons started firing. I always give example, when you started to learn car, you did not know how to change the gears and do all these things. It took you a long time to figure it out. Today, when you go in the car, do you ever think what to do? You push your keys, or nowadays you don't even push the keys. You just push the button, you start the car, and you're off, you go. The reason it happens that way, because your brain has allocated certain amount of neurons connected together to do that task, and it took some time to create those neurons. So I think the idea here is to how we can increase creation of these neuronal networks in the shortest amount of time for completing certain educational tasks. So if you look at here, the suggested pedagogical framework here is that you have to use media, models, interactivity, and social construction. So these are the 4 dimensions of learning, because no one learns the same way. In my research, what we also found that not only students learn differently, but they learn different content differently. So if you are learning math versus history, you may be completely different learner. You may make different learning choices, different learning strategies. So if you look at, in this case, we came up with the 5 learning strategies: apprentice being step-by-step learning, induction based on example, incidental based on real-life scenario, deduction based on learning by doing, project-based learning, and discovery, which is based on learning by conducting certain experiments, or now even game-based learning. So once you put all the content in the framework of pedagogy of learning strategies and provide sufficient interactivity with the real-time intelligent feedback, now I'm able to get you to certain competency. Once you get to certain competency, now you can be socializing with other students saying, I learned something, let me share it with you. So that's where the social construction and the group theory works there, how you form the group, norm the group, and all of that. So social construction has become very big in the MOOC environment, because now you have 150,000 students. You can socialize online, connect with each other through discussion board, chat rooms, Facebook, Twitters, and create certain social learning environment, which is becoming a very big part of online education. So in the 4-dimensional learning model, what I'm suggesting is the media is very good in invoking neurons. That means you are creating more input, different kinds of multimedia input, auditory, visual, kinesthetic, etc. So once you give that, electrical signals are creating more and more neurons, so you do need multimedia. But then once the multimedia comes in, it's not everything, which is what is often misunderstood, that if I put a lot of multimedia, a student will learn. It does not happen that way. The multimedia has to be put in the context of pedagogy. So in this case, all the multimedia is put in the pedagogy of apprentice learning, incidental learning, inductive learning, deductive learning, and discovery-based learning. So now, the system is also looking at all the trajectory that you are going. This is where my molecular dynamics background comes in. We used to observe all the atoms and their trajectories. Human beings also have their trajectory of learning. Atoms are well behaved, human beings are not well behaved. So it's very hard to predict them. However, with statistical inference like Markovian models, etc., you can now say what is the probable best path for you. And that's where the probability theory comes in. And now you can put that into, so now you have learning strategies with synaptic connections. This is where the name synaptic learning comes from. So more synaptic connections are made, and once you provide intelligent feedback, then networks are formed. Now you know that what you are learning is correct. You have been given the feedback right away, not like 24 hours later when you send an email to your online professor, he sends you answer after 24 hours and you forgot what the question was. So I think in this case, immediate feedback, if it is provided, then you go to social construction. Now you have bragging rights saying that I mastered this, I will tell you what to do. Let me help you out if you are not understanding. And that's where the best way to learn is to teach. And what we see in the online MOOC environment, a lot of students become teachers and they help each other out. But at the same time, it is right now done very randomly. So what we are coming up with the theory of how you form those groups in a correct way that you can enhance the learning process. So with that kind of thinking, you have brain-based adaptive learning systems with the MOOCs, where you can put a student initially with their own guests, then go through learning strategies, and now you have mobile devices. This is another thing which I am proposing, that if you look at outside America, people have more cell phones than the tablets and the laptops. And the cell phones are becoming smarter and they are becoming bigger in size. So cell phone, if you go to remote part of India, where I come from, you will have the person who is driving the rickshaw, 2 cell phones. But he won't have any education, but he's always carrying 2 or 3 cell phones. Why not reach them through mobile tablets and mobile phones? So this is where adaptive mobile learning works, is that you can provide immediate feedback through the devices, which are ubiquitously, truly ubiquitous devices. Now if you go to the first adaptive MOOC that we did at UMASS, we did try, and we do have some data, but for this talk, I'm not going to discuss that in detail, but we got about 20 to 25% completion rate in the MOOC as compared to 5 to 7%, which is the national average. So there is something good about adaptive MOOCs. Now the question is, can we really do more than statistical inference? Can we look into the brain? Can I open your brain while I'm teaching and say where the neurons are? Is it really doing the right task? The answer is yes. Many of you may have seen Matrix. Have you guys seen Matrix? The Neo is connected with the wires in the back of his head. And it can be done. And this is where I'm going with this idea, not that we will all be living in this virtual matrix, but we want to bring you to the reality using some of the EEG probes. So electroencephalogram was invented in 1924 by Hans Berger in Germany. Now if you look at the idea that was started just for understanding the brain waves, now it is used for a lot of disability issues and also mental issues. So if you have schizophrenia and all of that, you can look at the EEG brain wave patterns. So but the good idea with this kind of model is that now you are also taking care of the population which is disabled, participating now into online education through the EEG kind of situation. So now if you look at quickly the brain waves, there are 4 types. One is the beta, which is going from 15 to 30 hertz, which is where you have drunk a lot of coffee, a lot of Coke, you are really excited, and you cannot focus on anything. That's the beta phase. When you sit down, take some breath, calm down, focus a little bit on what you're looking at, that's the alpha phase. It's called alpha wave, brain wave. When you are really close to sleeping and highly meditative state, that's called theta. And theta state is supposed to be the best state for your learning and creativity. And the delta state is when you are completely asleep. This is the deep sleep, 4 to 5 hertz we are looking at. So using these functions, now what you can do, the mind reader mobile apps and tablets. So this is disruption. I'm not talking about science fiction. This is already happening. This is 19th of April, 2013. I think It's about that time this article came up. So now they are coming up with these headbands, which are with the probes around that, which are EEG probe. And if you look at your cell phone and say, dial my friend's X number, it will dial that number without you touching or doing anything. And those are mind reader cell phones or mobile tablets. This is another example which was presented to MIT as well, where the Samsung demos a tablet controlled by your brain. So what you are seeing here is that with the brain, when you think about certain things, there are two things happen. One is the brain waves changes, and also there's a location of neuron. So if you say a certain part of neuron brain, in the brain there's a topology, and there are 19 different probes I can put, but I can find out when you say A, what part of the brain lights up. So if you concentrate on A, and that part of the brain lights up, and EEG can figure out what neuron is that, immediately A will show up on your computer screen. So I'm just giving you a simplified model that how by thinking you can type on the screens, and for the paraplegic, it's absolutely great thing to do. So what I'm suggesting here is brain wave adaptive mobile. So what we will do, we will have these fashionable headbands, which you love to wear. Put it on you, you wouldn't even know they are EEG caps. And we will connect you to your own tablet and say, now start learning. While we see what part of neurons are learning, we'll start putting the content that really works for you, because now we know how you are reacting to the content, and we can get you to the competency in very, very quick way. Two things will happen. You will get to the competency of 100%, and you will reach there in half or less than half time. So if you are a pilot or if you are a surgeon, we want you to be 100% competent. We don't want you to get 90%, because if you are driving my plane, you better be 100% competent. So this is where we are going with this whole idea, brainwave adaptive learning. So as a parting thought, let me see if we can do a theta meditation together and get to that place where you will all be highly creative. Please do not drive after seeing this video. Before you go to sleep, I'm going to stop it here. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you so
Tom.
much. Thank you very much. Wonderful. Nish Sonwalkar, MOOC man. Thank you very much. Wow, that was, my brain is spinning. There's so much. Let's start with the fear, right?
Sure.
You're talking about EEG probes, and some German came up with it, and I'm thinking of East German sports training and Achtung, baby, and you will learn. I mean, you're going to have a punishment and reward in here too, like daydreaming, you get zapped, learn something, you get a little endorphin.
Well, I think the idea here is to find those patterns that really work for you, not punish you. So it's about enhancement of learning rather than penalizing you. So if you are daydreaming...
That sounds like what they always say at the beginning, and then later it's like, oh.
Well, there is this whole fear about the big brother watching you, the 1984 syndrome.
I mean, you want me to wear your fashionable headband, and you're going to track me walking down the street, and am I reviewing calculus formulas or not?
I think it's a possibility. There is a possibility.
I knew it.
There's
Wow.
always two sides of the technology.
Are we with this? This is like leapfrogging the MOOC, sort of widely understood iconic MOOC thing.
Right.
Is MOOC, and you said, I didn't know the Gardner's hype cycle, but I love that. I'm going to use that all the time. You said, we've been up this sort of MOOC excitement, now we're in the disappointment phase. But are we going to wade through it anyway? Are we going to go ahead and see massive MOOCs without the headbands and the probes? Or are we going to somehow leap over that and go straight to this highly personalized thing?
Well, I think what's happening is that MOOC are here to stay. That's my belief, is that after the hype cycle is done, and also some of the ideas are worked out, some operations are worked out, The credit transfer issues are worked out. I think they are here to stay primarily because they are essentially becoming precursor to your higher education or getting over some of the fears of education, or even those who never had any chance to learn. Now through MOOCs, they have first time to get chance to learn. However, what I see is that the MOOC movement, because of one size fits all, is not getting the steam that it needs to get.
Yeah.
So when the MOOC becomes a personalized experience, then it will cross the sound barrier. And that's where we are going to take off with that. And that's where adaptive synaptic system have to come into play.
So instead of getting into Harvard or just wrap on your fashionable headband, put the probes in and go, are your ideal MOOCs, this is a big college town, are they college killers?
Well, that question I've asked to many of the MOOC proponents as well. The way it works is that, and one of the scenarios people are saying is that the big colleges like MIT, Harvard, and all of that, they'll primarily become a country clubs where you come for the experiences. But if you want to learn, you can learn through the online probes. So but these are all debates right now going on.
They're not country clubs already?
I think some of them are already there. But what we are trying to say is that some of the smaller colleges are in more danger than the well-established colleges, because the well-established colleges and institutions, and that's one of the reasons I'm working very closely with UMASS system, because most of the students go to public universities.
Yeah, sure.
And if you look at 90% of population which is served by public universities like UMass, and also the community colleges, that's where MOOCs have to go and play the role. Because you need to get MOOCs, especially adaptive MOOC, to get their level to the level that now they are at the equal footing, equal playing field.
Why do you need all those universities for the MOOCs? I mean, the MOOCs don't need any universities, do they? I mean, they need a couple to develop the stuff, but maybe you have just one or two national leaders in each field, and all the others are unemployed.
Well,
everybody's watching the same video and getting 84 personalized versions of it, depending on their learning temperament, perhaps.
Well, if you look at, right now, if you look at West Coast and East Coast, they're all producing MOOCs. So Coursera has produced about 500 MOOCs. If you look at edX has produced about 80 MOOCs or so. And these are very high quality, very high production value MOOCs. And what they are doing is that they are providing the background information, very high quality courses. However, they are not getting into degree granting. So what universities are doing, they are keeping the degree granting part away. What I can conceive later on is that you took one course from Harvard, one from MIT MOOCs, all MOOCs, and then you come to X university and say, now you give me the bachelor's credential. Now that has not happened, and I think there are a lot of battles will be fought before that happens.
I feel like you're withholding, Nish. What percentage of our current population of colleges and universities will still be standing, significant, needed, and important once all of this comes to pass? 10%? 20? 2?
My guess would be that it will be split of 30%.
30%. So 70% of universities, colleges gone.
Possibly. And I think what they have to do...
We're going to stop history right here.
No, what they have to do, reinvent themselves to become a player in this whole MOOC movement, because there will be different services provided, different mentoring provided for the student, where there will be different models. And I know a lot of my faculty colleagues will be right now saying, Nish, you are absolutely wrong. If you look at the books were supposed to go away, they have not gone. Yeah. So I think there could be multiple pathways to come in. I think what it will serve is the underserved population. The other theory which is talked about is disruption. So there will be massive disruption because the colleges are so highly priced, they are pricing themselves out of the marketplace. The student cannot go, and if you look at the whole loan scandal, a lot of loan is taken and never paid back. Who is going to pay that? So I think bringing costs down, getting the level of education up, I think is overall very good for everyone. And then people will have to plug and play and reinvent themselves in the new marketplace, in the new genre of education. That's why I call it new, changing the interface of education with many different aspects where faculty can play a major role. Because now what happens, the faculty have to be extremely well prepared because this is a highly production environment. This is not like you can go to the classroom.
There's been a long competition between lots of universities, but in this town, Harvard and MIT in particular. Does this mean game over, MIT wins? Because they can design the probes and the software, and Harvard will have to use it.
Well, I think the jury is still out there. I think there's a lot of developments happening, but we are at the crossroads where MOOCs and the things like that are going to change the way we think about education.
And one other thing. You said at the top that the United States is losing its preeminence in education, science, and technology for a number of reasons, but that the MOOC movement, all of this put together, could bring it back. Why won't instead it catapult others even further ahead? It's easier to put headbands on a billion Chinese kids than to build, 1,000 new great universities.
Well, if you look at one of the experiments which America is the free world, truly free world. Most of the Chinese, if you give them choice, do you want to migrate to the United States? With the given communist regime, they may want to, although we may not have billion people space to keep them here. So what I'm saying is that the whole idea of American experiment and also making sure that there is a culture of research and education that attracted students from all over the world, if that is kept alive here, then we still will keep our technological edge over everyone else.
You have a really magnetic mind and vision and delivery, and we're very grateful to you for being with us today. Nish Sonwalkar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nish. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, fantastic. Fantastic.